y'all. It's K-Bird Tweets, and this is Peace, Love, and Baseball. Welcome back to Peace, Love, and Baseball. Hi there, I'm your host, K-Bird Tweets, and hey, we've got a whole show full of things like peace, love, and baseball for you today. Just as promised, we're going to deliver. Let's kick things off with our new opening segment this week in Peace, Love, and Baseball. Peace and love are actually going to be combined this week, which can often happen. We might not always have a peace, a love, and a baseball. Sometimes all three things will be in one story or one kind of topic. But this week, peace and love are combined, as they so often can be. And that was sparked by a personal experience that I had this week, and it got me thinking. How can we find ways to combine, like whether it's wellness, workouts, time for ourselves that in one way or another, I'm sure we're all looking to prioritize, especially at the start of a new year. How can we combine that with something that we love? Maybe something that we don't need the same level of motivation, that is already part of our daily, weekly, monthly routine, because it's something that we genuinely enjoy doing. And how can that help us to ultimately get more out of it? Maybe more out of both things. Not only can it be a more well-rounded way to work out or do something to take care of yourself, but it can be a motivator to do it. I did a workout yesterday that I have done many times before. I do it multiple times weekly. I do a couple rounds of basic strength training, like functional movements as kind of a warm-up, like a hinge, a press, a squat, a pull. And then I get on the stationary bike and I do intervals for about 20 minutes. But here's what I added in this time. And I didn't even actually think to do this when I started. I just got the motivation that I wanted to do it in the middle of the workout. So it wasn't like a planned thing. It was just kind of a being open, having a little extra time on my hands and discovering this. After I did the first couple rounds of functional movement, I sang a power ballad. I know, right? Well, hey, if you're not new around here, then you already know that's kind of my thing. I am a musical theater performer, and that is my thing. I'm a park and barker. I am a singer. If you're watching on YouTube, singer is up here, actor is a little bit below, and dancer is way down at the bottom, like by my knees. I try. I love to dance, but I am by no means, I wouldn't call myself a triple threat. I'd call myself a double threat who likes to do the third thing. But I am a singer. The roles that I am really meant for in theater are the roles that just stand and sing and deliver you a tune. So anyway, there are certain songs that are often referred to as power ballads that are just really in my wheelhouse. So I sang a power ballad. I was all physically warmed up, which is a huge part of being warmed up to sing in itself. So I sounded great, if I do say so myself. It felt easy, effortless, felt good. I just felt like I wanted to do it. I mean, that's how it came up to begin with. And then I got myself on the bike. I did my intervals. And after I finished, I sang another power ballad. Yeah. With my blood pumping and all that new oxygen flowing, I sounded and I felt even better. The sad thing is, I can't tell you the last time that I sang before then. It had been weeks. And I am someone who at times has made my primary source of income as a performer, as a singer or actor. But I don't currently have a reason to do it really at all. I don't currently have anything that I'm preparing for, but it is still and will always be like one of my favorite things to do in the world. It just is. It is something that I absolutely love to do. I know it's a special gift that I have that I would love to find ways to keep sharing. But because of how I am, it is hard for me to prioritize because it's not something that I have built into my routine. I don't have any kind of accountability currently tied to it. It is not something that I feel a need to make a priority, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. But it is something I want to make a priority. And the only way, that happens, or that, I'm ready for any opportunity, is if I keep doing it. So it is something that's very important to me, and most important because I just genuinely love to do it. But by adding it into something that I am very committed to and routine with, like my workouts, it was a perfect way to enjoy my workout while doing something I love, while I also felt productive. My workout felt even more productive because I did that I was like, I just put myself through like a musical theater boot camp. I'm ready to go. Or a Park and Barker boot camp, at least, because I'm not going to practice my dance moves on a daily basis unless I'm just, cleaning around the house, and that's a whole nother thing, but another way that you can motivate yourself to clean, kind of the same thing. But I got more out of both things by combining them. So it got me thinking about different ways that this could work, because for me, like, I'm someone who is very committed to the routine of my workouts. I have previous injuries and kind of pain that my workouts help me manage. So for that reason, like, I am very committed to it. It's something that I don't have to look for motivation for. But the singing it's not something that I just like get the feeling to want to do. And that's because I don't make time for it. And I feel I am a very like productivity chaser kind of person. So I feel like if I'm not tying it to productivity, that feeling to do it just doesn't come up. And I have to kind of create the reason for it to be, or a way for it to be productive for me. But when we had the gals on from the Crying in Baseball, there is Crying in Baseball podcast. Shout out to Sarah, Rach, and Haley. Check out their show if you haven't. But when Sarah specifically was here, she's Sarah Ann 1212 on Twitter. You might know her, Cardinals fans. But she shared with us that one of her favorite forms of self-care is spending time reading in the sauna after she does her workout at the gym. What a lovely incentive and way to combine both something that is self-care as much as the workout is, like reading. But that time reading was something that was already more enticing to her, and therefore it feels like a reward for getting through the physical work, which is sometimes, and for most people, until you kind of find your reason and your routine like I have, that is the thing that there is a lack of motivation, or, you need a little bit more inspiration and a reason to get through it. It's more difficult to commit to. So that is the kind of example of the opposite way that mine worked. But for me, it's hard to make time for the thing that I love, and I can enjoy it more when I tie it to productivity. And in Sarah's case, it's a way to tie something that she enjoys doing and carves out time for it as a sort of reward time, helping her commit to doing the workout prior to that time. So I believe that there is great value in finding ways to reward ourselves as adults. We are just wired that way. I wanted to bring that up as a point today, that it doesn't make us like childish or silly. I remember when I lived in New York and I didn't have in-unit or I didn't have laundry in my building, let alone in my apartment. So I had to lug all my laundry a couple blocks around the corner to do it. And I remember always tying some sort of reward to it. Like, okay, while my laundry is in the washer, I'm going to go get a sandwich at my favorite place or whatever. Like, I would always have some sort of motivation for when I had to do things I didn't want to do. And I always thought it was like a very childish thing. But the fact of the matter is, like, it's standard human behavior. It is how we operate. We are all that way at all ages, and there's really nothing wrong with it, especially if you utilize it to your advantage to make yourself better and be more productive. And there's no reason why you shouldn't also do things that you enjoy, as long as, they're not detrimental or reversing the other thing. Right? Okay. So another example that has nothing to do with like physical wellness or movement might be if you're trying to commit to cooking for yourself more or trying out new recipes. What can you tie with that would make it more enjoyable for you? Maybe you could pair it with listening to music or one of your favorite podcasts, or do it with someone that you love hanging out with. Make them a part of this new habit that you're trying to create, instead of sitting on the couch watching Netflix and when you're hungry, getting on Grubhub or calling for delivery or pickup or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Instead of hanging out in the drive-through line, make some food together. Find a way to incentivize yourself, and it becomes an entirely different commitment. So I wanted that to be our peace and love segment for this week, because it kind of plays into the whole resolution mindset that we talked about last week, and where most of us are at the beginning of a new year. We've got a little more room to breathe, not as much going on after the holidays, but with that comes all of this kind of like seemingly like free time maybe that we have now, or desire, want to take the time to better ourselves. Raja's over here talking. Maybe you hear him. He's like, yeah, I'm here for it. And there's just like little tips and mindset tricks that can make a huge difference. So for me, when I had that workout yesterday and I sang my songs in between it, I was like, this is a repetitive thing. This is something I can repeat and make a habit and make like a really positive and enjoyable thing for myself, the same way that I'm already repeating the workout behavior. So if you're trying to adapt a new habit, can you tie it to a habit that you already have that is, a relatively positive one? It doesn't have to be a super productive one, but, if you're putting on your favorite shows at night and that's like by default what you do at the end of the day, how can you tie something with that? What can you do at the same time? Or what can you do for an hour before to, again, then have that like Netflix show, have your binge as your reward? So tie it in relation to something that you're already doing, and it makes it that much easier. It's like already part of the routine. There you go. Peace and love, folks. Let's talk about a little bit of baseball before we get into our first team feature this week. If you've been keeping up with all the free agent signings, then you know about all the latest there. Shohei Ohtani, Yamamoto, Teoscar Hernandez is the latest of the Dodgers just bulldozing overall the rest of the teams in Major League Baseball. Harrison Bader. I mean, there's been so many signings recently. And if you want to get into more of that, if you're not up to date, if you're like, wait, what, who, what, where, then you've got to check out our weekly episodes of Bourbon and Baseball, where I am co-host with Suzy. Bourbon and Baseball, we're on YouTube. We're on all the podcast platforms. And Suzy and I break it all down for you. We're doing an episode every week where we break down all the moves. We give you our takes on it. And I will link that in the show notes for you if you have yet to find me there. But today, here on Peace, Love, and Baseball, I'm going to give you my 3 hottest takes on what I'm feeling could still be in the works this offseason. My first take is for you, Cubs fans. I need you to calm down. I need you to take a deep breath in through the nose. Slow, nice, slow exhale. Just let it all go. Let all the air out. And do that like 127 more times, because I believe that the Cubs are still going to make some serious noise and moves that will make them a different level of competitive than we currently view them at in 2024. They did not sign Craig Counsell for nothing. There's been a lot going on with the Ohtani, the Yamamoto, even now they're waiting for Bellinger, I think. There's a lot going on that is a holdup here. And it's just taking a little bit longer for these things to play out. But also, it's not even really longer. Sometimes this is how it goes. Like, a lot of the biggest contracts don't happen until after Christmas. Like, it's fine. Here we are. So it's going to be okay. I know that it's been frustrating. As a team like my team, the St. Louis Cardinals, they've done a handful of things, kind of in a few different chunks, but, they're not particularly super like thrilling by any means. And we've talked about all of that as it's happened. And I understand the Cubs have not done that yet. They haven't done anything really outside of signing Craig Counsell as their manager, which was very big news. So I know that like the no news can be frustrating and you're getting a little impatient. I get it, but I promise you, Jed Hoyer is awake. Stop trying to wake him up. He is awake. He is awake. And he is as antsy as any of you. But I really do believe they're going to make some big moves. And I'm going to be super annoyed by it. And, we'll cover it here. And Suzy and I will talk about it even more on Bourbon and Baseball. But yeah, some deep breaths. Just try to be patient. The off season is fluid. Isn't that what they all say? And there's still so many free agents and some of the biggest names in this free agent class that have still not made any kind of decision yet or any kind of commitment. So slow down, hold on. The Cubs are coming in 2024. I just freaking know it. My second take is that Dylan Cease on the other side of Chicago, I'm thinking less and less that Dylan Cease will be traded. I think maybe he's not going to be traded. And I'm not saying I'm right. I could totally be wrong. I'm totally fine with being wrong. I will revisit it if and when I am wrong. But I kind of like the White Sox angle on their commitment to a cultural rebuild. I mean, even signing a player like Paul DeJong, they brought Brett Phillips in. We are advocating for them to bring a Joey Votto in over on Bourbon and Baseball. So they're not going to re-sign Tim Anderson. Obviously, I don't think Dylan Cease was a part of that like culture problem. I think he was part of the ramifications of it. He didn't have, he did not have the run support behind him. There was no offensive production to support whatever he was going to be able to do out there. And so that's what you don't want for him coming into 2024 if they aren't going to trade him, right? You don't want to see him have to go out there with some of the body language that we saw last year. The attitude of just like, what do I have to play for here when, yes, they have their individual stats to play for, but it is really difficult for, I would guess, most Major League Baseball players to play and to exist solely for their own stats. And at some point, like a player is going to have a better competitive edge with a team that has that same competitive edge. So that is the reason why I would like to see Dylan Cease traded. But I'm not sure the White Sox will get what they want in return for it, especially considering how long it's taking some of these free agent pitchers to decide where they are going to end up. And the value of it just kind of keeps changing. But the tricky thing is do the White Sox stand any chance of being competitive enough to hold on to a player like him? And you think not, but weirder things have happened. And surely they are not done yet either. So we'll see how that plays out. But I really thought it was going to happen in November. After it didn't happen in November, I was like, I don't know, man. Is it going to happen? It didn't happen before Christmas. And now I'm just kind of like, I don't know. There's some reason why they're holding on to him. And I think they've got two different paths that they could go down right now. And we're going to see them fully commit to one or the other pretty soon. But I think they might stay on the Dylan Cease path. They might keep him on that journey with them in 2024. Okay, speaking of cultural rebuilds, have you heard the latest from, I just got to talk about the Cardinals for a second, the St. Louis Cardinals writers. A lot of what they've been covering lately is about the front office and their narrative that they are really partaking in a cultural rebuild, and that is a big part of a lot of their latest signings, which, maybe that is to justify the less than thrilling offseason moves and put that spin on them. But it is very much the narrative that they have committed to. And it sounds a lot like what I was saying back on April 11th of 2023. Yeah, I put an episode out 2 weeks into the season, and I was basically saying all the stuff, almost verbatim, that is coming out of John Mozeliak's mouth now, of what could potentially be the disconnect here, and how that could play into the winning culture and ultimately the success of the team. And it's not black and white. It's nothing you're going to find in analytics. And so I found that really interesting, and I felt very validated. And I went back and listened to that episode, and I was like, good job, past Kelsey. You had some points here. I think Mo has been listening. Maybe not, but I'm going to link that episode in the show notes for you, because I just never thought that I would be able to go back to an episode that was so about such a specific time, and that it would still read and be so relevant and interesting today. So that one's evergreen for you. Check it out in the show notes, Cardinals fans, if you missed it, or maybe give it a re-listen, because it is what we are hearing the front office and the Cardinals leadership come out and say now, that like, hey, all these things that Kelsey was saying was the problem on April 11th, 2023. We've reflected on the season and we see it now. That's exactly what it is. At least that's my narrative. I'm speaking my truth. All right, let's move on to my third take here before we get into our team feature. My third take is that there will be at least one other team that is currently under the radar that will emerge as a playoff contender in 2024, like prior to the season starting, from free agent signings and or trades that have yet to be made. Giants, Padres, dare I say Red Sox? Mark my words, there will be a team that currently has a pissed off fan base that's going to be a lot happier before opening day. There's just way too much still out there. There's way too many moves to be made. There's way too many players that could make a huge difference for a team. So we know all the free agents that have been signed. Let's talk just about a very small handful of free agents that have yet to sign. We've got Boris's Big Four, as they're being referred to now by Ken Rosenthal of The Athletic. Blake Snell, Jordan Montgomery, Cody Bellinger, and Matt Chapman. All Scott Boras clients. If you have listened before, you may have heard me talk about Scott Boras and my very specific feelings about him, but he is playing a game and he thinks he's playing a different game than everyone else, but waiting this out is definitely part of his game. But those are four guys that, especially three of them, that are going to make a big impact on any team, regardless of where they end up. You've got guys like Jorge Soler, power hitter, Rhys Hoskins coming back at first base, Josh Hader, best back-end bullpen closer on the market, David Robertson, another really solid guy who can make a difference in your bullpen, Tommy Pham, Marcus Stroman's another starting pitcher that's out there, Joey Votto, big culture find, big presence. And of course, what he can do off of the bench with his bat or wherever you put him. Jock Peterson is another big bat. Justin Turner, Liam Hendricks, just to name a few. These are more of like the household names. But there are so many that are still out there. Just because Ohtani and Yamamoto are off the docket, not all hope is lost, my friends. And I'm looking forward to us hearing more about what is going on with the free agents that are left, and seeing how these teams start to take shape, because there's still a lot of action to happen. We will wait for it. For now, we're going to pivot to our first team feature. So if you listened last week, you know that we're going to focus on a different team each week of all the 30 franchises. And this will be over the course of 2024. So there's 30 teams. There will be some weeks where we don't have a team feature, but instead we have like a different professional league feature. Like we might talk about the KBO one week, or, you know, when it's Jackie Robinson week, we're going to talk about Jackie Robinson, that kind of stuff. But for the most part, every week we're going to feature a different franchise here. And we're also, a part of that will be featuring interviews with fans, writers, employees, players, ex-players of these teams, so that we can just learn more about baseball as a whole and appreciate it as fans of Major League Baseball. So today's team feature is the Houston Astros. From 1886 to 1961, Houston's professional baseball club was the minor league Houston Buffaloes. But a couple of businessmen named George Kirksey and Bill Kirkland wanted to bring a major league team to Houston. They ultimately formed the Houston Sports Association. Then big American oil guy Craig F. Culligan Jr. comes in and is president of the organization, and he actually made multiple attempts to buy other teams to bring to Houston. This is so interesting. I had no idea about this, but in 1952, the Houston Sports Association actually bid $4.25 million to try to buy the St. Louis Cardinals. You're like, $4.25 million isn't going to buy you a team. Well, in 1952, I think that was probably relatively competitive. But now you think about like the type of player who is even making $4.25 million, and it's like, your mid-leverage reliever. It's crazy to think about money then versus now. And it really it wasn't that long ago. They also tried to buy the Philadelphia Athletics and the Cleveland Indians in the 50s. In 1960, after a lot of back and forth and even an attempt to start a third separate league, separate from the National League and the American League, the National League of Major League Baseball granted an expansion franchise to the Houston Sports Association for their franchise to start play in 1962. They obtained the territorial rights from the Houston Buffaloes and began the purchase of that team because they were like, we know you're a minor league team, but like we have the territorial rights now and you got to go. So Houston's major league team started playing in 1962 as the Colt 45s. Was their original team name. The name was due to being both the gun that won the West and looking for a promo deal with the Colt Firearms Company in Texas, y'all. Owners of the team desired to have a name the team contest, which saw thousands of entries. Some of the other entries were the Houston Generals, the Houston Rebels, the Shippers, the Houston Sports, and the Houston Sams. Anyway, Colt 45 sounds okay then. The colors were navy and orange, and the Colt 45s played their first game on April 10th of 1962 versus the Chicago Cubs. They initially played at Colt Stadium, which was a temporary spot until the organization could build their indoor stadium. And by December 1st, 1964, in tandem with the new indoor stadium opening, the team announced that the name was being changed to the Astros. So that's why you might not know that they were ever even called the Colt 45s, because it was not for very long. They've really always been the Astros. The Astrodome then opened in 1965. Houston was a big part of the game changing here because grass would not grow in the Astrodome indoor stadium. And, the conditions in Houston are probably not great for grass as it is. But Houston actually became the first team in Major League Baseball to play on AstroTurf. The Astros team mascot is Orbit. He's really cute. He's like a little alien guy. He's got some antennas. Look him up if you haven't seen him before. But he made his first appearance in 1990. And he is still seen at Minute Maid Park to this day. Minute Maid Park opened in 2000. It is the current home of the Astros. They're in Houston. I have only seen Minute Maid Park from the outside, and it looks really cool. And it's definitely a place that is on my list to want to get to. In 2013, the Astros franchise was moved from the National League Central to the AL West. So Cardinals fans listening, you may remember the Astros. For me, growing up, the Astros were much more of a rival of the Cardinals. Not so much anymore because they got moved, but they were in the National League Central division. So they were in the same division as the Cardinals, and they were definitely during that period of time, at least during my childhood, 90s, early 2000s, were like the most competitive team with the Cardinals most seasons. But they moved to the AL West to ultimately create 15 league teams. Isn't that weird to think that, at some point, the American League and the National League were not even. Now they are. Thanks, Astros. The Astros minor league affiliates currently are the AAA Sugar Land Space Cowboys in Sugar Land, Texas. I think this is going to be another really fun part of this, is finding out all of the minor league affiliate names, because some of them are pretty fantastic. Their AA team is the Corpus Christi Hooks in Corpus Christi, Texas. And their single A affiliates are the Asheville Tourists in high A and the Fayetteville Woodpeckers are their low A team. Both of those teams are located in North Carolina. The Astros advanced to their first postseason in 1980, and they have made the postseason 17 times in total. They are actually one of only 8 teams in Major League Baseball that currently hold a winning postseason record. Some of their most notable players are Hall of Famers Craig Biggio. He was definitely my favorite Astro to watch growing up, and of course, Jeff Bagwell. Then you've got some notable players that played for the team, even if it wasn't for long, like Randy Johnson, Ivan Pudge Rodriguez, Roger Clemens. We've got Billy Wagner, who's on the Hall of Fame ballot, trying to squeak in this year. Jeff Kent, of course. Curt Schilling, before he was the Bloody Sock. And current player Jose Altuve is probably like the most popular, well-known among Major League Baseball because he's already making a case for himself as a future Hall of Famer. The last time that the Houston Astros missed the playoffs was in 2016. Now, here's what a lot of you, if you know anything about the Astros, if you're a baseball fan, this is probably what you know, and this is what you want to know if I'm going to talk about. Well, of course I am. The franchise is well known these days, perhaps for the cheating scandal that was uncovered from their 2017 season, which was a year that they also won one of their 2 World Series titles. So that made it even more scandalous. For years, some people on other teams had suspected that the Astros were stealing signs, but there was no public reporting of it. But it had always been kind of like whisper behind closed doors until November of 2019. So over 2 years after they actually won the World Series, Ken Rosenthal and Evan Drellich at The Athletic published an article detailing the team's suspicious activity. Mike Fiers is a pitcher who had played for the Astros in 2017, and he's the whistleblower here. He told The Athletic that the organization used a video camera in center field seats to observe the opposing catcher as he instructed the pitcher about the next pitch. So this was obviously pre-pitch comm. All of this coming out in the last few years, definitely a reason why we jumped on pitch comm and just another reason to figure out a way to use it. The Astros players or team staffers would watch the live camera feed behind the dugout and used a variety of different cues. The one that is most well known is banging on a trash can to tell the batter what type of pitch was coming next. MLB launched an investigation in January of 2020 that confirmed that the Astros illegally used a camera system to steal signs during the 2017 regular season and postseason, during which they won the World Series, as well as part of the 2018 season. They kept it going. I mean, you didn't get caught. So here's how it all played out. The Astros fired their manager, AJ Hinch, and their general manager, Jeff Luhnow, who originally came into baseball with the St. Louis Cardinals before he was with the Astros. And in January of 2020, this all went down after Major League Baseball fined the team $5 million, and they took away, I think, 2 of their top draft picks for 2020, or maybe 2021 and 2022. A couple draft picks got nixed there for them as part of the punishment. Both AJ Hinch and Jeff Luhnow were suspended for a year by Rob Manfred, the baseball commissioner. And even though he handed out these punishments, he has been criticized still to this day for not really punishing any of the players. And he did not take back the Astros World Series title from 2017. While AJ Hinch was fired from the Astros, I think they just kind of needed to wipe the slate clean. Probably a good move. Didn't last too long because he was named the manager of the Detroit Tigers on October 30th of 2020. It was less than 72 hours after his suspension expired. They were like, cool, AJ Hinch, bring him in, let's go. And he seems like he's doing a relatively fine job and is well liked by that organization. So then the Boston Red Sox parted ways with manager Alex Cora, who had been the bench coach in 2017 for the Astros. So he's part of all of this as well, which you may or may not know. But they rehired him less than a year later after MLB reported that he was probably not really a part of the scheme. They just said, you know what, in our findings, Alex Cora, not one of the guys that's mainly responsible. And the Red Sox were like, amazing, bring him back. He's still there now. Then the newly hired manager of the New York Mets, Carlos Beltran, ended up resigning before he ever managed a game. I forget that even happened, that he was named the manager of the Mets in 2020, but he resigned because he was an outfielder for the Astros in the 2017 season. So I think, the Mets ownership was probably like, yeah, we brought you on before all of that came out, and we don't like the way that this looks, and we're just not ready to take that on. So you can say that you're going to step down now. Yikes. Since then, lucky for the Astros, they have continued to be a highly competitive franchise, and they won another World Series in 2022, which has helped repair the image of the franchise to some extent. While sign stealing has been around forever, there is a lot of good information and articles out there on why this Astros scandal was different than that. So you're going to hear in this next interview coming up us talk about it a little bit, but there is a lot of information out there about why it ultimately affected the integrity of the game and why punishments were handed out and this big, long, drawn-out investigation took place. So we are going to talk a little bit more about that in our interview now with two diehard Astros fans who also covered the team on their own podcast. So let's hear from them and learn a little bit more about the Astros and their fandom with Suzy and Tom. So we are lucky enough to have two Houston Astros experts with us here on Peace, Love, and Baseball to give us some unique insight into the team that they have been following. I don't know for how long. We're going to find out. That's part of what we're going to find out today. So please welcome Suzy and Tom from the Bourbon and Baseball podcast. They do weekly episodes covering the Astros. And then you might recognize Suzy from our All the Balls version of Bourbon and Baseball as well that I co-host with her. She's a busy gal. And then Tom and Suzy also media cast together on the PSF app, which is pretty cool. And we'll tell you some more about that maybe towards the end here. But they cover the Astros there as well. So Suzy, Tom, welcome to Peace, Love, and Baseball, and thanks so much for hanging out with me for a little bit tonight.
Well, thanks so much for having us. I really appreciate it. It's not like I don't get to talk to you often, so
I know.
Well, for me, this is awesome because I don't get to talk to you enough, Kelsey.
For Tom,
I definitely get all of Suzy. So we're on like the same schedule. Yeah.
We don't like you that much, Tom. We don't allow you to hang out with us that often.
I'm okay with that.
We're bringing him in today because he does seem to actually really like the Astros and know quite a bit about the Astros. So hopefully he can provide some value here. But I am interested to talk to you guys about like how you started following the team and kind of your perception of the franchise overall, because the way that you cover them weekly is very much like keeping up with what's currently going on. And we all have kind of this broader spectrum of our teams that we follow that we don't necessarily talk about as much because we're so busy keeping up with them. So, Tom, I'll start with you. How did you start following the Astros? How did you become a fan?
As early as I can remember, we were watching Astros games, sitting on the couch. I mean, we watched all the local sports. My grandfather actually owned a transport business where he would bring in the visiting teams and sometimes take out the Astros or the Oilers back then, and they would take all their equipment, put them on the plane, and they go wherever or bring the other team stuff in. So I mean, I was a Houston fan from basically birth, and for me, like growing up, it was kind of like awesome because I was always like. I kind of saw myself in them as kind of the underdog kind of guy. They weren't very good. So, you're rooting for the underdog. You're like going, okay, we're coming up together. And, just little by little, I mean, we had, glory moments here, there, wherever. But, I mean, it's been since day one.
I don't know anything about the underdog days of.
Yeah, I was going to say
baseball.
Suzy's story is quite different. So Suzy, tell us tell us your Astros fandom story.
Who's she? We don't know her. We don't. So I have only been a fan of baseball, of the sport in and of itself, since 2018. So that 2017 World Series win, that not a clue. Like literally, my husband had to wake me up during Game 5, screaming, "Alex Bregman walked it off in the 10th." And I'm all. So now, if you know me at all, you know that you don't wake me up from a slumber unless it's actually time to wake me up, or like house is on fire type stuff. So I'm real mad. I'm all, sir, you made words, and I know what they mean individually. You strung them together in a sentence, and I don't have a clue what you're talking about. What words? What are these words? And so I had no clue. So that first 2017 like World Series, I didn't really get to enjoy. Started liking baseball in 2018. Obviously, they were still very good. 2019 is really when I understood more of the baseball terms, what happened. I mean, literally in 2018, I had asked, "Oh, okay, so like the shortstop has to be short," in reference to Jose Altuve, our second baseman, our short king.
Yeah,
and he's like, "No, that's
just watch
Carlos. It's Carlos Correa. That's the tall guy right there, Mal. That's why it's in the name, shortstop." Like, and he's like, "No, that's not it. Nope." Mm-mm. And so, so I've only known the good Astros, the golden days, as people are calling it. And so now he likes to ask, what are you going to do when the Astros are bad again? Well,
yeah,
that's painful. Thank you.
You're gonna have to
hence why I like all of the baseballs, and I can just talk about the Diamondbacks. Thank you. So
totally. Yeah,
but yeah, no,
but you're just also like not coppable at all for any of the 2017 trash cans. Like, no scandal. You just don't even know about it. Weren't there for it.
No. I mean, like, now everyone's like, "Oh, trash can, blah blah." I'm like, might I remind you about the Red Sox and the Dodgers and the film room?
Oh, there's so many things.
I was like, come on now, like, come on. So, but it's a whole thing. And literally, when all of that like went down in 2019,
2020, yeah,
and then 20, I was like, I still really don't have a clue like what actually happened. So I'm all, at some point I'll probably like read the book, but I don't want to right now.
Yeah, Tom, let me ask you about that real quick, because I am excited to have you guys here to tell our listeners more about the Astros, just beyond what the casual baseball fans knows, and what they do know them for these days is probably the trash can scandal. And that's kind of like the shade that I feel like any other fan base, it's just like such low-hanging fruit that you can throw at Astros fans. But how did you deal with that as a longtime fan? And I guess, how do you feel about it now?
So for me, like being a much longer tenured fan of baseball as a whole, I remember the steroid era. I remember all these teams juicing. I remember Mark McGwire. I remember Alex Rodriguez. I remember, I could name so many names, but it's just not coming to me right now, because I'm just like, no, there was like, they went to war against the players, but not the teams. Like, the teams have all these records and accolades, and I mean, you had Sosa and McGwire back and forth and that, and I was just like, we didn't care about the teams then. They still got to. I mean, and the Yankees, they were passing the needles down the clubhouse locker room, it felt like. So for the Astros to get caught up in this other scandal, I was kind of like, I didn't really care, because the baseball has been like policing itself, so to speak, forever with all the different things, sign stealing, stuff like that. So, I mean, I get why other fans are angry. Here comes this team that was historically not good, and now they're dominant and they feel cheated. And for a fan of that team, I was just kind of like, look, man, there's been plenty of clubs that have made their bones on if you look at the A's when they had, Canseco doing his thing. I mean, I look like where would they be without, that era of baseball? So.
All right. Well, and not to throw shade at your beloved Cardinals, Kels, but I mean, really and truly, like, people went to fucking prison.
Yeah.
From the Cardinals organization for stealing computers.
Yes, they did. Yes. And Jeff Lunell was brought into baseball by the Cardinals, which I think is a conversation I would love to have between Cardinals and Astros fans. Like, I think we need to do a book club where we all read Winning Fixes Everything together and talk about it, because I was floored by how much of that book is about the Cardinals and just about Jeff Luhnow and how he got into baseball. So that's all super interesting. But Tom, you make a really good point, and I think that's a great call out that, like, is it really that different than many things that have happened historically over time? And is it really that different? I guess my kind of take on it is it's just the way that things happen at such an elite and highly competitive level, is whether it's in the way that they're getting around, loopholes in contracts to make things work to give them a competitive edge, or finding ways to steal signs and get into people's computers and stuff. They're always pushing the envelope because ultimately the reward is so worth it that it's going to happen sometimes. And yeah, it sucks that it tainted like this great stretch that they've been on, but the good news is they've won now since then, and they've continued to maintain that without the scandal. So let's just leave that behind and have a great conversation about the Astros.
Also, just to really kind of push further home the point of like all of the things that happened before this, how much different would all of the baseball records be if social media wasn't actually a thing? I mean, because like really and truly, we can thank a certain media company located, in another state for really and truly like blowing up that whole scandal and the rumors and all of that stuff that really pushed home the narrative of the sign stealing and all of that stuff. And so I'm like, how much different would all the steroid era have been in the social media era? That's just a whole thing that I'm all, ooh, that would have not been a good thing at all.
Yeah, everything and little things like that, like make the whole game different for sure. But let me ask you, Suzy, what do you appreciate most as a newer fan, but just a fan overall? Like, you love all of baseball, you follow all of baseball now, but what is it about the Astros that you would say you're like really proud to be a fan of that is maybe over, other Major League Baseball teams?
Well, I mean, one, just being a diehard Astro fan in and of itself, like coming into this whole golden era of Astros baseball and coming up with, getting Kyle Tucker and Yordan Alvarez and like that, those were my rookies that came up like as in my fandom. And so, seeing those guys grow up, so to say, I mean, like, the evolution of Kyle Tucker from boy to man is just 100% absolutely ridiculous. And so, I mean, just that in and of itself is just a super awesome thing to watch and just see how far they've come, which is crazy because they were so good when they were younger too. And so, I just watching all of those guys and like the clubhouse, like camaraderie. There we go. Words are hard. Yeah. That the guys have with like the veterans and then like the rookies and all that is just, I just love it. And just, I get chills like watching them all bond. And I'm like, oh, it's such a happy family sometimes.
The vibes, the dynamic of the team. I love that. Tom, what about you? What makes you feel like being a fan of the Astros is elite?
For me, it's the fact that even though this is one of the fourth largest city in America, it's been like a small market baseball club, like since I've been a fan. If you go further back with my younger guys, the guys I grew up with, Biggio and Bagwell, those were kind of homegrown guys too.
Yeah.
I mean, Bagwell was traded for, but it was before he became what he became, in the same vein as Yordan Alvarez. So like, for me, it's like this is the evolution of that team that was like ultimately gonna like develop talent to win, as opposed to the Dodgers and the Yankees and the Red Sox. They were just gonna buy it, and those teams won all the games. I mean, they tried. I guess the Astros really tried to follow the model in my mind of the Atlanta Braves, who really just developed talent, and they were just better at it than everybody else, and that's why they were always had a seat at the table. And now the Astros are in this golden era where it seems like they're just better at developing talent than a lot of other teams, regardless of what the minor league rankings, their prospects, they just get it done, whether it's in the Latin community or wherever else.
Yeah, I do think that's a really cool thing to appreciate, especially these days about the Astros, is the success that they've had with the development of players. And you're right, Craig Biggio was like one of my favorite players to watch growing up. He was always my Astros envy, and that was when they were in the same division as the Cardinals, so there was big rivalry there. I guess let me ask you guys now, because it's definitely evolved since the Astros have changed leagues and divisions. Give me like the top 2 teams that are I think I know, but want to hear it from you. What are the top 2 teams that would be like the rivals of the Astros?
Who the Astros view as rivals? Is that what we're going for?
Yeah, like the Astros fans. Like what games, like they're coming into town and the stadium's gonna be packed and there's just gonna be that different type of energy.
For me personally, I think it's the Yankees. I think it's the Yankees and the Dodgers. Like those are who I personally view as our quote unquote rivals. Color me absolutely floored when I found out that the Cardinals were supposed to be our big rival. I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, not so
Since
much
when? Yeah, and my husband's like, oh yeah, no, that was our huge rival was the Cardinals. Well, I don't understand, but no, absolutely not. I'm like, it's the Dodgers and the Yankees at this point in time. And then when I found out that the Yankees and the Red Sox were rivals, I'm all, in what world? Yeah, tell me you're a new baseball fan without telling me you're a new baseball fan, Suzy.
I guess as not a new baseball fan, Tom, would you say the same?
I'd say the Rangers and the Yankees. I believe now Texas is really split in half. I think it was more Ranger dominant. I spent a lot of time in San Antonio, and that was like 80% Ranger fans in the beginning. And now that's starting to shift a little bit because of the success of the Astros. So I feel like you're never going to see a Rangers Astros game that isn't like standing room only, because it's just so competitive. And now that they're in the same division, I mean, it's Yankees, Red Sox, South for me.
Yeah.
So, and then the Yankees, I mean, clearly to have the sort of dominance, and I can say dominance because the record bears it out, that the Astros had against the Yankees, who the Yankees just feel everyone's inferior. So you can tell their fan base just can't get over what the Astros are doing. And Altuve cannot retire fast enough because he just absolutely owns them. You can't say Astros without Yankees right now.
Yeah, they are very, very threatened. That's for sure. That I have picked up on. Well, we're really high on vibes here at Peace, Love, and Baseball, and we've talked about a lot the culture, the dynamic of the team, as you mentioned, Suzy. So I want to know if you could pick one player who is currently a Major League Baseball player who is not on the Astros that you think fits into the culture of the team, does not have to fill a current need for the team. You don't have to get rid of anybody. You just get to pick this guy and have him, and he's yours, but he's not currently an Astro. Who would it be? Who would you pick?
Well, you mentioned him a little bit earlier in the show, and when I got these questions last night, I was thinking about this, and immediately I was like, oh yeah, Randy Arozarena. Randy Arozarena.
Yeah,
for sure. We've got the Cuban connection, we've got the Cuban pipeline, he's now since a Mexican citizen, but I feel like his whole vibe, his attitude, the way that he plays the game, I think Randy Arozarena would be a delightful Astro.
I dig it. Totally agree. Tom, who would you pick?
So I was trying to think like off, outside the box, off the wall, a player like nobody's gonna think of, and for me, it was really, really close. I think Acuna would be a phenomenal Astro, Ronald Acuna. But the name that I want to give you, the one that one's easy, right? I feel like he's going to be a phenomenal anything.
Sure.
Bryce Harper. Bryce Harper is an Astro. Fantastic. Nobody's got that moxie, that energy that I think the Astros kind of quietly have. I think you get Bryce Harper in that Astros orange, and he's just talking trash to everyone, and I would love it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he would liven up those other guys. That's for sure. That's why I like this question, because I think it's fun. Like, when else would we ever be talking about having Bryce Harper on the Astros? It's never going to happen, but it's really fun to think about it. And that like culture fit, like how he would vibe with the team is super
like
fun.
him and Bregman, like after what? Oh.
That's what I was going to say, Tom. That Bryce Harper's vibe gives off 2019 Bregman vibes. That swaggy, like holding up forefinger, should have walked me, like because that Bregman hadn't been around in a hot minute. I kind of miss that Bregman, but I almost feel like he doesn't want to give that vibe off any longer because of the whole 2017 thing, and it makes me a little sad because he's trying to. I feel like he's trying to get back there, but he's a little bit older now. He's like, maybe I can't do that.
It's okay, so. Bregman, if you're listening, you can let it out of the bag. We're here for it, even from another fan base. But yeah, I think Bryce Harper, what I like about him is that he's definitely reined it in. You can tell he has he's figured out that perfect balance between like being a showman and being somebody who's super fun to watch and really fires people up, but is also like still like there's a fine line and he doesn't cross it. So I don't know. I dig it. All right. Last question for you. This might be kind of challenging because personally, as a fan of my team, I don't know how I would answer this, but I'm going to give it to you. See what you got. Tom, in one sentence, sell us on why we should be a fan of the Houston Astros.
I know for a lot of fan bases, they're just never going to want to hear it. I understand. But and they don't believe what I'm about to tell you. But if you want a wholesome team, you know, like I just talked about with Bryce Harper, these Astros, they're really not brash. I mean, they're fiery, but I think they're really like have a calm demeanor. Their clubhouse is very family oriented. The HEB commercials, I know Kelsey, you don't get those, but if you get a chance to go look them up, I mean, they're funny guys. They're like really chilled, laid back guys. If you want that sort of team, I know some people kind of walk around serious. Obviously, the Yankees, I feel like everything they do is so serious.
Yeah.
And I feel like it has to be. The Astros are really laid back. I really think like their vibe, since we're big on vibes, is just such a you know, kind of a college frat house type vibe. I feel like with those guys, that's what you're getting in the Houston Astros, and I think it's a fun team. When you get past all the scandal stuff, when you get deep and you start to do your research, that's what you're going to get from the Houston Astros.
Yeah, but like the most wholesome college fraternity
like
ever. Not like
not ASU.
Like, not like the, you know, I'm not going to throw any certain fraternities under the bus, but what's the really nerdy fraternity from the 80s movie? What am I?
I don't know what I'm
talking
about? Lambda.
That one. There you go, Tom. There you go.
Wait, you missed it. I said I'm not old enough to know about the movie.
That's why I was pointedly ignoring that comment, Kels. Yeah, because you were a baby. I know.
But okay, Tom, that was a really beautiful run-on sentence. I loved it. Suzy,
it was like 8 sentences, but I'm sorry.
No, it's a challenge, but I do think it was one continuous thought. Suzy, tell us why. Like, I am not a baseball fan, but I've like decided I'm going to get into it, just like you did 5 years ago, and I'm trying to decide who to be a fan of. How are you going to sell me on being a fan of the Houston Astros?
Do you want to be a fan of a baseball team that is homegrown and likes to have a lot of fun and will be probably good for the next few seasons, and I don't know, has won a bunch of things in the last 6 years? Because if so, come on over. Also, who doesn't look good in orange? I mean, me, but like that's okay. But I wish I did. Yeah, really and truly, I honestly started liking the Astros because they were orange. Not even gonna lie. Like, had it not even been the team down here, I literally was looking for baseball teams, and I was like, all right, well, I guess it's either like the Mets, the Giants, or the Orioles, and then like, you know, Mike's like, you know, the Astros are orange. I'm all, no, because I thought they were like, you know, still like red and brick, and I'm all, he's like, no, they're orange. I'm all, oh, done. And so orange really that sold it for me. And then I found out about all of the other really, other pointed things, but really and truly, they are a really fun team to watch. And you like to watch winning baseball, it's a good club to watch.
Yeah, they have been.
But maybe only watch the road games.
They have been super competitive, and more when they are away from Minute Maid Park, which is where they play down there in Houston. All right, well, you made me a little bit bigger fan of the Astros today myself, and great point there to kind of put a pin in it. They've got great swag as well, because that's always something, you want to buy something that you're going to want to wear, and I can't argue with that. Tom, will you tell the fine listeners where they can find you if they want to learn more about you and the Astros?
Ladies and gentlemen, you can find me on Twitter, not X. We don't believe in that. Whoever thinks it's X, they're wrong. It's Twitter. It'll always Twitter at Third Coast Tom. And if you're not on Twitter, I can also be found on the PSF app, which we will talk about more. It is basically a sports bar vibe without the sports bar, from the comfort of your own home.
I love that. I got to check it out. And you guys are obviously my first stop. Suzy, we can find you there as well, correct?
Yes. Tom and I did the PSF Astros games all last season, and I'm pretty much going to be there this upcoming season. It's a lot of fun. You basically can chat with us during the game, asking why, we're not putting Yiner in, or, why are we, sitting a certain player, all of that fun stuff. We like to talk, stats, all of the fun stuff during that. They have other sports. So if you're, I don't know why you wouldn't be a baseball fan, because duh, but football, soccer, basketball, they have all of the sports for pretty much all of the teams. Last season for baseball, they really only had, I want to say, the Astros and I think the Dodgers. But this upcoming season, they will be rolling out MediaCast teams for all of the teams.
Nice.
So be on the lookout for your favorite team and your favorite MediaCasters there. But if you can't wait and you just absolutely adore us, you can find me at baseball_SuzyQ, SUZY. And that's my personal Twitter. I'm never over there. I don't know why I gave you that. Typically, you can find me on Bourbon in B-Ball. So Bourbon and the letter N, B-Ball. That's the show. And that's the main Twitter that pretty much I tweet out all about my cats and baseball. And as of right now, a little bit of football, just because I don't really know what's going on and I have to ask questions.
Well, I was gonna say, and the Texans are like doing the thing. They won their division, right? Even I know that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yay, good job, Kels. Yeah.
Thank you.
Trust me when I say I was like, I don't know what's happening. Like, I don't know. Who do I want to win? What do I need? Who has to win today in order for the Texans to do the things? And my husband's just shaking his head. He's like, Jesus.
We're slowly converting Suzy to a football fan as well as a baseball fan. It's slow,
no,
but it's coming little by little.
All right.
I don't know.
If you are a football fan and you want to become a bigger baseball fan, these are your people too.
Well, if you don't know jack about football, and you want to be dumb with me and like ask all the questions, because mainly I'm like, where's the ball? Why is that a penalty? What's happening?
Did it stop again?
That's come hang out with me. Come sit next to me, because I'll be that person.
Okay, cool. Yeah, you're my kind of football watching partner as well. Then. Thanks to Suzy and Tom from Bourbon and Baseball and from the PSF app for hanging out with us and giving us a little bit more info on the life of an Astros fan. And thanks to you for hanging out and finding out a little bit more about the Houston Astros and talking some shop with me today. We will be back. New episodes of Peace, Love, and Baseball every week on Tuesday. And in the meantime, I'm going to ask a few things from you. Go follow at Kbird Tweets on Twitter. Go subscribe on the YouTube channel at Peace, Love, and Baseball, if that is the way that you wish to consume this content. Actually, our YouTube channel is at Kbird Tweets. You'll see Peace, Love, and Baseball in the title. I'm sure if you search that on YouTube, it's going to come up. All of this is also in the show notes for you very conveniently if you are listening on your favorite podcast platform. So if you're on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, make sure you're subscribed there as well. So the episodes will just populate weekly for you, and you'll be ready to hear next week's episode with another new team feature and much more on Peace, Love, and Baseball. I will catch you next time.